Let's now look at the second bit of training that we're reviewing now, and that's about the value of open architectures and minimal interoperability mechanism. And that's much more looking at, within a city council, how can you unlock that data overall? How can you set up the right sort of structures and frameworks to do that? And how can minimal interoperability mechanisms help with that whole process? So we're going to be looking very briefly at the need of an open data architecture. We're going to be looking at how minimal interoperability mechanisms can help. And then we're looking at how the procurement help desk will be able to provide support to our cities and our communities. Let's think first then about the open architecture. So when we're wanting to build a data sharing ecosystem, we need to make sure that it's open. That's not open data, that's about an open architecture. And what we're talking about there is an architecture that allows new components to be added or changed very easily, which may be coming from many different other organizations, companies, agencies, to be able to adjust that ecosystem to deliver all the different kinds of things that it might need to deliver as things change and grow. Now, when we say open, we don't mean non-proprietary, because we know, for instance, Windows and Android are proprietary operating systems, but they're open in the sense that they're designed to allow many other agencies to develop applications that can be built on top of Windows and Android, and can therefore make those operating systems even more flexible and effective, and provide even more options for the users, and make the whole thing more valuable. And that's what we're talking about here. It may be that you've outsourced your data ecosystem to a provider that uses proprietary solutions. That's fine, but make sure that whatever solutions they put in place make it easy for you to add in new applications and services to meet the changing needs of your different ecosystems. And so the thing to do in all of this is to make sure that you step back and you look at at the way data needs to move through and around the whole city ecosystem, to be able to provide the right data to the right places in the right way. And so it's a very important exercise to spend time in thinking, what data do we need to make sure the city can work well? Who owns that data? How can I access it? How can it be accessed? What kind of data is that data? Is it geospatial, IoT? Is it databases? What kind of data is it? And is it open data, or is it sensitive data that needs to be managed in a careful way? So these sorts of questions you need to be asking yourself. And then when you've done that, to think about how can we use that data within our own city administration, and how can we provide that data more easily to all the many other agencies and the citizens who could use it to help their lives run better within the city. So that's the important thing. Really try and take as comprehensive a view as you can of all the data that needs to be moving throughout the city, where it needs to be moving to, and where it needs to be coming from. And here's a very simple way of looking at that, but it's just there to give kind of a start, so that you can look at, who are my partners? What are the different sector data spaces that are there or need to be there? What data am I getting from central and regional government, and so on? What data am I getting from IoT? What data am I getting from social media? How am I drawing that data in to within my own city administration, IT functions and so on, and making it available to the different departments within the city council? And then how can I be providing what's relevant to others in the best possible way to help make sure that that data is really free and is really doing all the kinds of things that can be done? And it is important to do that, because once you've mapped where the data needs to be coming from and where it needs to be going to, then it becomes easy to identify what the barriers are. And that's not a theoretical exercise. This is about going to all the different departments in the city council and to all your partners and so on, and asking, what are the challenges about getting the data you need? Is the data that you're wanting in the wrong format, or are there other restrictions that make it difficult for you to use it? And then once you've done that, of course, then you can start to say, here are all the barriers. Here are where the barriers are and what they are. let's think about the solutions that can help get rid of those barriers to make sure the data can be properly used. And in that whole discussion, the minimal interoperability mechanisms have a key role in opening up and dealing with the different barriers that you may well identify. So you may say this is a lot of work, and it is a lot of work, but it's well worthwhile spending the time needed to do a thorough, if you like, a collection of information about all of these things, because having done that, then you can be much clearer about what you need to be doing to build on a solid foundation and really get a very active and helpful ecosystem going. And in doing that also, it becomes much clearer about how minimal interoperability mechanisms can help you achieve your objectives. Let's think a bit about interoperability. What is it? Why is it important? Well, interoperability is about where you've got different systems, different partnerships, different agencies, different IT systems that need to be able to share information and work together and collaborate together. And interoperability is about making that happen, making it possible for that information to be shared and operated together effectively in a way that's completely predictable and you can be sure will provide what you want it to provide. Of course, that's not a simple matter. There are many issues you need to tackle. Here's a list of some of them. How to manage personal data, data security, geospatial data, how to make sure that any AI algorithms that are being used use the right data to enable them to make fair and transparent decisions. What about common ways of describing things in data models, data analytics? Lots of different issues need to be looked at when you're thinking about ensuring proper interoperability. And even though standards organizations are doing a great job and are solving individual issues, the different issues are being dealt with by different committees. And therefore, very often, there's problems when you're trying to bridge across between different types of data and so on, in that while each one of them may be standards compliant, there's no obvious and easy way for you to take data that's been built using one set of standards and use it with data that's been built using another set of standards. And so while they're really important and long-term, that's the way forward, we still need other mechanisms to help us be able to make full use of standards-based data. So that's what we're talking about here, that interoperability isn't an either-or issue. Plug and play is great when everything just works. Most often we find when you do your analysis of your existing data ecosystem, you'll find in many instances a lot of the work of integrating different data is being done manually, spending lots of time of key officers making sure that the different data sets are properly aligned to work well together. And what we're looking for here is what are different tools that we can use to help make that manual work a bit less, to make it just that bit easier to be able to align these different kinds of data. And so that's what we're really talking about here. It's about interoperability that can be put in place with minimal user intervention, taking away as much of the manual work as we can and making as much as possible to be able to done automatically. So that's what the MIMs really developed for. They started out when cities were beginning the process of using IoT data in particular to develop smart applications. And the idea there was simply to provide some basic tools to help cities gather and use data in consistent ways so that any useful application developed in one city could be easily ported without too much work into another city. But of course, over the years, cities are using data in more and more sophisticated ways. The challenges are changing. There's much more big data. Cities are using, for instance, traffic management systems that are collecting huge amounts of data from every aspect of the city, traffic lights, level crossings, all kinds of things like that, in order to get that really good picture of what's happening. Huge amounts of data of different types need to be brought together. And so the MIMs are continuing to evolve to be able to address the new challenges that cities are facing. We've got 10 MIMs that we've been working on over the last few years. As we've been revising them recently, we see effectively there are two kinds of MIMs. There are foundational MIMs which cover kind of generic issues, if you like data security, data access, data representation, and so on, that are basic ways of dealing with interoperability between any kind of data. But then we also need to look at particular application areas like personal data management or geospatial data to look at any particular challenge about integrating and aligning data in those areas that needs to be dealt with by more specialist MIMs. And so we're working hard to make sure that there's sets of tools that will enable you as city administrations to be able to more quickly be able to tackle the challenges and the barriers you find in building and developing your local data ecosystem. The MIMs are built in a very consistent way. This has been standardized through the ITU, the UN Agency for Telecoms, who one of the three main international standards bodies in the world. And so this has been standardized as a process where you start with a clear objective, you divide that into capabilities, you see what the requirements that are needed are in order to deliver on those capabilities, what are the different optional mechanisms that cities might use to deliver those requirements, and then once we've identified what are the different ways that cities are using to meet a common set of requirements, how can we start to bring interoperability between those different mechanisms, and how can we check that the requirements are indeed being met. So the aim of the MIMs is to, by identifying the key capabilities needed for data sharing and translating those capabilities into requirements, then you can start, then it enables cities to see, here are the different alternatives that we could use. What are the right ones for us? We can see much more easily the pros and cons of the different mechanisms into how well they'll address the particular needs that we have. But it also, once we've been able to describe these different mechanisms in a common way, we can much more easily find out what commonalities there are, whether, for instance, these different approaches still use some basic standards that are in common, as an example, or whether there's some common interfaces that we can identify across which open APIs, application program interfaces, can be used to help bring data from different kinds of sources into being able to be used for particular purposes. So this is a really important thing that we need to be doing in developing the MIMs, and with your help we can make sure these tools are precisely the kind of tools that you need. So the value they provide is it enables you to much more easily share and reuse the data that comes from partners that may use different approaches. It makes it much easier for you to compare and contrast the value of different approaches offered by vendors in procurements, and it makes it easier to develop a path to change technical approaches because you've got a clear sense of what you need to achieve. So if that technical approach is no longer the best way of doing that, because you're clear about what you need to achieve, it's much easier to work out how to change that with another different way of delivering that to that same objective. And the procurement help desk can have a key role here in helping you put all of these many different complicated things into practice. They're developing procurement templates that will first of all provide you with the opportunity to systematically capture the functional and technical requirements that you need to address when you're procuring a product or service related to data spaces or local digital twins. And in each of those procurement templates, there's a section which addresses how the MIMs can help with that whole process. So that will also help you be able to much more easily use and get the gain value from the minimal interoperability mechanisms. And as part of all of this process, we are developing a set of self-assessment and technical tools to help also to be able to check that the products and services offered by vendors comply with these requirements, and so that you can confidently procure them and bring them into your data ecosystem and be sure that they'll work properly. And these are going to be incorporated as well into the procurement templates to enable vendors to be able to demonstrate to you that their products and services are indeed the kind of things that you need within your local data ecosystem. So hopefully this has given you a really good sense of the importance of that open architecture for your data sharing ecosystem, and how the MIMs can help you address the key issues, the key barriers that may be getting in the way of sharing that data properly. And the fact that these MIMs, they're based on existing standards, and so by implementing them, you're, if you like, putting in place a great foundation that you can continue to build on in the months and years to come. So I hope this has been useful. If you want to find out more about the MIMs and MIMs Plus, are what the MIMs, if you like, focused on the European context. And you can look on the Living in the EU website and find out the latest version of the MIMs so that you can get the detail of what's needed. But of course, you can also come to us in Open and Agile Smart Cities, and we'll be delighted to help you see how MIMs can be part of your key strategies in delivering, using data to deliver what your citizens and what your businesses and what your organizations need in your city and in your community. Thank you very much indeed.